he jumped in with a flying kick right to the leader of the thugs. I was kind of worried that once he reached Fooding High School, things were not going to go the way I wanted them to. So I want to apologize for not putting out this Windbreaker video sooner. I've been sick for the past 4 or 5 days. At the same time, I was extremely excited by the first episode, so I really wanted to make a video to share it all with you. By now, episode 2 has been released, and a lot of content creators have made their own videos, reviews, and especially reactions to the first episode. So I'm just very briefly going to talk about that first episode, and then I'll jump right into the second one. First off, I just want to say that Windbreaker is right up there. It ranks among my top 3 for first episodes of any anime ever. It's that good. The action, the quirky behavior of the main character, the side character interactions, and the world building are really second to none. My only regret, and this might be a controversial opinion, I wish they had cut out the opening song. I know that sounds kind of strange to say, but it's not that uncommon. It happens more than you would think. It would have been really nice to have that extra time so that they could tease more of Sakura Haruka's backstory. Or even just do some more comedic beats with Sakura thinking that Konoha is threatening to fight him. I did want to point out though that in this very first episode, we see Sakura get injured by a random gang member who was using a knife during a fist fight. Basically, it was meant to show us that no matter how well Sakura fights, that there's always going to be even just a little bit of a chance that something could go wrong. Losing concentration for 1 second could mean losing the battle. From then on, he was just susceptible to being run over by their sheer numbers. So pretty early on in this series, we're learning that it doesn't matter how strong you are as an individual, you need numbers to back you up. Basically, you have to be part of a gang in order to defeat a gang. Okay, episode 2. So the second episode may not have been as action-packed as the first one, but at least we had multiple characters being introduced. We had some new plot threads that were showcased. Basically, we were given signposts to future characters or events that will be coming up in the next few episodes. Notably, we were introduced to Nirei Akihiko, and though they kind of intentionally made him to be one of those bumbling, clumsy people with no fighting ability, he's still really necessary to the story because he's the one that's gathering all the information for Sakura. He's going to be one of the side characters that are going to, well, it looks like he's going to aid Sakura in reaching his goal of becoming the strongest fighter in Furin High School. Did I say Furin? Maybe I should say Fooding High School. And it's important to make that distinction that he wants to be the top fighter, the best fighter in Fooding High. He's not trying to become the new leader of the gang, which call themselves Fooding, or that's where the word Windbreaker comes from. So Nirei's relevance really comes down to his personal notebook that he keeps, which has statistics on every single notable fighter in Fooding, and as well as background information on each of them. But before they reach Fooding, Nirei does get into a scuffle with some random thug members. They were unsuccessfully hitting on a random woman who clearly wasn't interested, so Nirei took it upon himself to stand up for her. Now, he didn't stand much of a chance against them, since like I mentioned before, he has no fighting prowess, at least nothing that we've seen yet. But his bravery and his commitment to doing what's right was very admirable. Fortunately for Nirei, before things got very bad, Sakura stepped in, or should I say, he jumped in with a flying kick right to the leader of the thugs. So I do want to say here that due to how the first episode went with all the townsfolk being very warm and welcoming to Sakura, as well as how the beginning of the second episode is turning out, I was kind of worried that once he reached Fooding High School, things were not going to go the way I wanted them to. I really didn't want the Fooding High members or students to accept Sakura so easily, so warmly or openly. Because clearly Sakura moved to this town to beat them all up, right? He wanted to find the strongest people, fight them all, beat them. He's very confident in his abilities, and he wanted to work his way up to the top. So he would definitely take the wind out of his sails, and all the Fooding members just welcomed him. So obviously, because he did a good thing in episode 1, it was an act of kindness and bravery, but it can't be something that just puts him inside of the good graces of the Fooding High School students. Luckily, we have that scene where Nirei was reading through the list of students from each class, and as he was going through, there were several names that were clear to him, that these were impressive first-year students, probably fighters. So these are people that Sakura was probably going to have to go up against. Obviously, all these students are probably local to the town, which means that they should all probably hate this, half white-haired, one yellow contact wearing, well, they think he wears contacts, contact wearing kid from out of town, right? It's just some punk that decided to move into this town thinking that he could beat everybody up. Sakura was probably thinking to himself that he could beat up all these guys just like he was You know, like he was going through trash mobs in an MMO or an RPG, something like that. So the word antagonistic doesn't even begin to describe how these kids should be feeling towards Sakura as soon as he steps into their classroom. So imagine my surprise when Suo Hayato just politely greeted this out-of-towner and immediately begins to praise him for how he fought the day before. So right there, my heart dropped for a second, I gotta be honest, because it looked like that an entire story arc for Sakura versus Bofudin was gonna be undermined right at the middle or just past the middle of the second episode. Okay, after recording that last part, I went back and did a little bit more research. So I rewatched part of the first episode, and it appears that none of the Bofudin members were around when Sakura was talking about what his goal is, which of course is being the #1 fighter. Only Kotoha and some of the other townsfolk were around, so I guess we can cut the first years a little bit of slack. They could be forgiven for not jumping Sakura right on sight. Luckily, the main character himself stepped up. He proudly stated why he came to this town and what his goal was, that he was going to beat everyone up, work his way up the upper echelon of fighters. And he said it so confidently and so proudly that the whole class was shook. Everyone was silent. So they finally understood what this kid was in town for and how they should feel towards him, right? So that's when we get Sugishita Kyotaro. We don't see him first, we just see a disc fly right by Sakura's face. Luckily, he dodged it. And as soon as I saw that disc fly, I thought to myself, oh, okay, we're back on track now. So there is going to be some fighting going on here. They're not just going to let him in all willy-nilly. This is exactly how I wanted to see things play out. That's when we actually catch a glimpse of what Sugishita looks like. He's a towering student, probably the tallest out of all the first years. He's got a very thin frame and he's got dark blue hair. The first thing we actually see of him are his hands. They're not clenched, but they're rigid, they're twisted, and then his face is scowling in pure anger and hatred about what he just heard come out of this punk kid's mouth. Without saying anything else, he just launches up into the air, pulls his fist back, and is ready to throw a haymaker at Sakura, at the same time yelling he's going to beat the crap out of him. Of course, that's not going to be enough to catch Sakura, who was prepared for it. He just definitely moves out of the way, and instead Sugishita ends up hitting a desk that was right there where Sakura was standing. So the episode ends with Sakura whistling to himself, and basically smiling at the destruction that was left behind. With a big grin on his face, he states that this is exactly what he expected from Fudin High. So overall, I think episode 2 was pulled off extremely well. That is to say, they pulled off the delicate balance. The balance of Sakura being antagonistic to the Bofudin members. Because you have to keep in mind that our protagonist just stood up for some of the townsfolk the day before. And that's something that Fudin High School students deeply respect. For me, that balance is going to be key to the show. At least this early on. They can't undercut the tension and the goals of the main character so quickly. So as you can see right here next to me and over here behind me, I just purchased the first 2 volumes of this manga because I was so interested in finding out what was going to happen next, and I really didn't want to wait for next week's episode. Hopefully Sakura does have to fight his way through each of the ranks. It would even be awesome to see other gangs or other schools that he has to deal with. Maybe even the whole town working together as a gang fighting against another town. But I think the main thing I wanted to say today was just that balance is the key. I don't want the show to get too caught up with power creep. And what I mean by that is the show turning more towards fantasy. We don't want these supernatural abilities and talents to start popping up because I love how grounded the show feels right now. Something that I wanted to touch on were the few shots that we see where they show outlines of some of the characters that are in Bofudin. We already know the names of several of them, but the ones that stand out to me, and in no particular order, are obviously going to be the leader. I said no order, but he's #1. Anyways, then there's the short, gas-wearing character, just the outline that we see of them. There's the tall female student. It looks like she's probably the only female in the gang. And then there's the long-haired ponytail guy. You know, from the couple of pictures that they show us, it looks like he's probably going to be second in command. So I think it's cool to try to guess what they look like or what their fighting style is going to be like. And they're nothing big. They're just kind of a signpost of what we can look forward to up ahead. These are people we're probably going to meet during Sakura's journey. Okay, thank you for watching. If you enjoy this type of content, please hit the like button, hit subscribe, and click the notification so you don't miss any other videos about Windbreaker or other anime. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.